Hey, it's the Preacher, and I'm at one of my favorite spots, a dirty tailgate. A dirty tailgate can be dirtied a number of ways. You can clean fish on it, and it'd be a little slimy, maybe have a few scales on it. That's a dirty tailgate. You could have loaded a deer up in there and hauled him out of the woods. That's a dirty tailgate, and that's what's happened here. I've hauled a couple of deer this week, and I want to talk to you about cleaning your skull plates to keep your horns. When you saw the horns off a deer, they look like this. And I present my horns after they get set around for a few years, and I finally get around to it. I put a teardrop shape of wood and cover it, and I'll do a video on that maybe in the spring after hunting season's over. But you don't want to bring a deer head into your house or a set of deer horns into your house looking like this with all this hair on it. And inside this hair is meat and skin, and I mean, this can rot and stink and attract bugs, and even if you let it dry, this dried skin will attract bugs. So what you want to do is remove the hair off of it, which I've already done here. But you also want to remove the meat and some of these crusty ends there that get stuck to it. And so I'll do that right now. But the easiest way to get the hair off of a deer is to do it before it dries. If you let it dry on there, you have to get a screwdriver and a hammer and beat underneath it. And but if you'll just take a few minutes before the meat dries and before the skin dries, you can take all that meat off there and see you got pretty much clean bone. Now, I've seen some guys, they take salt or borax or, you know, some kind of drying agent and put on here, and that's really not necessary. You just want to get most of the meat off, and that's already kind of gotten hard like beef jerky. But if you get most of the meat off like this, you can come back and whittle on it all you want to and scrape and pull the rest off, but that's all I'm looking to do right there. Get some of that off there. I just want a clean piece of skull, and that way after this dries out and I bring it in the house, I don't have anything on here attracting vermin. You know, you don't want bugs eating on your deer head, and so you can wipe these down and clean them up. But I just want to talk about getting the hair off there. Now, this is the second buck I shot, but on the night I shot it, I took the hair off. This was my first buck of the year. I shot this one on the opening day of rifle season, which is a little over a week ago, and I put the entire head in the freezer. Don't ever do that. I thought I'll just put the head in the freezer and I'll saw the horns off later. When you freeze everything, the ears were here frozen. I had to saw each ear off individually just to get the sawzall. That's what I use, a sawzall, to cut through this. And then when I'm cutting through it, the problem was the brain was as hard as the bone. So you're essentially sawing through, the brain is all in here in the skull. You're essentially sawing through all of it. And it was like nightmare. But anyways, I've left it out. It's thawed out. I'm going to show you how to take the skin off a deer's antlers. Skin off a deer's antlers, skin off a deer's skull plate. That's the proper taxidermy term. And all you want to do is stick your knife right up under that antler burr and pull straight away. And so if you can see here what I've done on this horn, I've stuck my knife right up under the antler burr and I've cut straight away. It's very simple. I've seen guys whittle on these and yank on them with pliers and everything else. It's that simple. So once you've made that cut from up under the antler burr, you're going to go all the way to the skull. Now just cut enough of the skin away on both sides so you can kind of get a grip on it. And here's the star of the show, channel locks. Now this is an old pair of channel locks. I got these from my grandfather. And what channel locks do is they allow you to get a hold of that deer skin and grip it. And then you get this lever action. You get this leverage on it, and you can pull it and strip it away. And then once you pull away, you grab it again, Start to pull. You may need to, at a point, reach in here with your knife and cut a little meat that's kind of hung up. Once you get the meat cut, use that shape of the channel lock to pry the skin off there. Any of this meat that's hanging up, just take your knife and make a simple cut around it. Now go back to this side. See how I'm grabbing that skin? I'm going to pull it and use the shape of that channel lock to pry that skin away from the horn. There. Let me bring you in here close where you can see. Do you see how clean, even with that big knuckle sticking down there, that hair is all pulled out of there? I've seen people that cut it off here and you just have fuzzy hair. Just make one cut. You can see my knife marks. Make one cut from up under the bird down. Get a hold of your channel locks. Pry it this way, pry it this way. That side's done. If I wasn't trying to think about what I was telling you and explain it, and I'd already be done with this. It really takes longer to tell you about it than it does to actually do it. But you only need a knife to make that initial cut and a couple of cuts around the edges. Just remember, you want the channel lock pliers so you can get that prying action on there. That's what gets the hide coming off fast. And go around to this other side. Make a couple of cuts there at the bottom just to get the channel locks in there. Okay, when you're coming up the side of the horns, the skull plate recesses back in front of the ears, and there's usually a bunch of meat loose in there. That meat will not want to let go just because there's a bunch of it. Make a couple of cuts and then pull that on around. And there you have it. Let me make a couple of cuts here. You'll see the skin's all detached. I'm just taking the muscle out. Now, this little bit of meat right here, you want it to go ahead and get that off while it's soft. Otherwise, it'll harden on there like beef jerky, and then you'll get bugs in it later on. Show you what I'm taking off here. When you turn it over and you look on the inside, there's always a little meat right here. This is what works the front of the ear on both sides of the anatomy. What I'm going to do is just reach in there with a knife and cut that off. So I'll just take my knife, go right in there. If you got a good sharp knife, it makes easy work. Up in there, pull that off. You go to the other side, do the exact same thing. Just a little bit of meat in there. Sometimes you can start where you're sawed at. Sometimes you start with the end. Just whatever works for you. It don't matter. You're just following that. You're just following that skull plate around. You're just cutting in between the skull and the meat. And you, like I said, you can sit out here and spend an afternoon whittling on this thing if you want to and scrape it all down to bare bones. But really, if you just get the bulk of it off, let it sit in your garage for about 2 days, or, you know, on the back porch, just don't leave it low enough where the dogs will get it. And then this skull plate is these dry Sometimes you'll get a little membrane you can pull out of there. I usually just let it dry. So there you have it. 2 clean skull plates. They're just about the same width, but this first buck had a lot more tine length. Kind of has a big acorn knot on that back tine right there, but I was pleased with both of these deer. Anytime you have a year you get 2 like this, I can't complain. It took me longer to talk about it than it actually did to do it. But if you'll take a few minutes right when you kill your deer or a day or 2 later and get that hair off, just make an incision. I'll show you one more time. Make an incision from here to where you've sawed the skull plate off. Just make 2 incisions, reach in there with your channel locks, start prying around. It won't take long, you'll have it pulled off. If you wait until it starts stinking, it's going to be stinky, you're not going to want to do it. If you wait till it dries, you'll have to get a screwdriver and a hammer, and you'll be driving a screwdriver up under here, prying that stiff hair off or that leather off, and then hammering underneath these. Just take a few minutes the next day after you've cut your horns off and take the skin off. And don't freeze it whole like I did this one. I think I just about wore out a Milwaukee Sawzall trying to cut through a frozen deer skull with ears in the way. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Take good care of your horns. Leave them around. Every time I look at this deer, I'll think about it trotting across that bean field. Every time I look at this deer, I'll think about it eating acorns here in the woods around my house. These things are memories of great hunts from the past. Hang on to them. And the only way to do that is to take care of them. So let's take 15 minutes. Clean up your deer skulls while they're fresh, and then you can look at them for the rest of your life. Pass them on to your kids so they'll have something to dispose of when you're gone. Thanks for watching.